problem. Okay, before we ask any question about it, first step we have to do is get ourselves protected and you. If I do business with the general public, I have to be licensed as a CPA and an attorney and whatever else they decide to do what I'm doing. But there is another law that says that within the confines of a First Amendment association, we can do anything short of murder and get away with it. And so we ask you to join this First Amendment Association for Pilot Connection Society. It costs $45 a year, covers husband, wife, and unmarried children under 18 living home and working. And what you get for this is the ability to discuss your problem specifically, plus a very, very valuable newsletter that's going to give you all kinds of great information about how to run your financial affairs, as well as information on what the government's up to and this kind of thing. Okay, we'll put that aside for a moment. Any questions on what we've shown you so far? Okay. All right, next thing I'm going to do is show you the documents we use to fight them with. Okay? And then tell you how much they cost. And after that, if you want to proceed, then the next step is join Free Enterprise Society and go on. First thing we're going to do, if you have a problem, is we're going to write your cover letter. Now, this is what I call a position letter. That means that you're saying, you did this to me, I want this for redress. Okay? It may have exhibits, it may not, depending on whatever. We do recommend that you handwrite this letter, because it takes 3 to 5 times as long to read handwritten material as it does type. Anything to slow those turkeys down. But this letter is not cast in concrete. In other words, you can add or subtract from what we suggest to suit your own needs. Next thing we're going to give you is another cover letter, which also should be handwritten, but this one is cast in concrete. In other words, you have to use exact wordings that we use here. And it starts off by saying, I've studied law and find I'm not under the jurisdiction or agency, and to paraphrase it a little bit, it says, if you have any information to the contrary, I want it signed in writing under penalty of perjury. And if you go around this demand, I'm going to sue you under Section 7214 of the IRS Code, which is quite crystal clear that when an IRS revenue agent uses color of law to extract taxes from someone, he becomes personally liable. He can get $10,000 fine and 5 years in jail for doing that, plus be discharged from his job. Okay. The next thing we're going to hit with is an official demand for jurisdiction. This requires your name and address here. This whole thing has to be retyped. You send it to the IRS's local office, as well as, like Fresno, for example, the regional office. And the reason for that is that they like to play football with you. If the local office is after you and you push them out of the picture, then they chase Fresno after you. But if you get them both at the same time, you probably never hear from them again, which is what you want, of course. Then the date and certified mail return receipt requested. You sign it here, and you get a proof of service signed by a disinterested third party. That's real important, because if you don't, every time they'll say, yeah, we got your envelope. They have to. They got their receipt. They send the receipt back. But what you said was in there wasn't in there. If you got this, you said, hold it, I got a witness. Then they never question it.
So you use like a notary for something?
No, not for this. This is just a friend, okay? Anybody but the two of you, okay? Also, you need to retype this. This is a memorandum of points of law. Anytime you do anything legal like that, you have to have some kind of law backing you up, okay? And sign that. This is probably the most important document that we have in our bag of tricks. The only law in here that the IRS can charge you with is Section 7203, willful failure to file. There's only one way that they can prove willful failure to file, and that is to bring in your old tax returns from 19 whatever, and say, look, Your Honor, he knew he was a taxpayer, here's his old returns, now he isn't filing. And the judge would look at that and say guilty. And you would pipe up and say, hold it, Your Honor, I found out there's fraud involved here. Fraud vitiates the most solemn promise to pay. So I revoked my signature on all those documents. The judge says, let me see that thing. Hand it to her. Case dismissed. Now the IRS knows this, and this is why in the over 8,000 cases that I've handled in the past 8 years, they've never ever taken one of my people anywhere near a courtroom, because they all file this up front. And that means that their documentary evidence that you were a taxpayer is blown right out of the water. Okay? Now here comes the biggie for most people. This is revocation of your bank account, checking, savings, and bank credit cards. And the reason for that is this. There was a little card, about yay big, yellow or white, called a signature card that you signed when you opened that account. And right above where you signed your name, there was a little paragraph of fine print that said, in effect, I agree to abide by all this bank's rules and regulations and all the rules and regulations of the Federal Reserve System. One guy said, they said, well, I couldn't find the Federal Reserve System on anything. I went to the bank and looked at it. And I said, yeah, but it did say the bank's regulations. He said, oh, yes. Yeah, well, the bank's regulations, not the Federal Reserve regulations. So if they want to play games with you and hide it, but you're still signing a contract, unbeknownst to you. They're telling you that it's just your signature card so they can check your signature on your checks that come in so nobody can forge them. That's a lie. It's an adhesion contract. And what it does is this. The first step is, if you ask them to see those regulations, you know what they show you? The door. Because they know if you read the regulations, you wouldn't do business with them. One of the regulations is that the instant that you put that money on a teller's cage, that it belongs to the bank and not you. What did you just do? You're doing business with the Federal Reserve Bank, aren't you? Who's the IRS? Collection arm for the Federal Reserve Bank. You just gave them written permission to clean out your checking account anytime you want to. But they didn't tell you that. And you didn't know it. And maybe you had your checking account cleaned out. Okay? All right. The other thing is that you put yourself under Admiralty Maritime law, which is the worst place you can be. There are two basic kinds of law. One is the common law, which belongs on the land, and the other is Admiralty Maritime, which belongs on the sea. Now, Admiralty Maritime is nasty law. If you have a ship here at point A, and you have a captain, you give him a commission to get that ship to point B. And you're on the crew. And out here in the middle, somewhere in the voyage, the captain does something immoral, illegal, crazy, whatever. And you're going to argue with him, and that argument can cause the ship to divert its course. He has the right to kill you, throw you in irons, or throw you overboard. And when he gets over here, he doesn't have to pay any penalty for doing that, because his commission is to get the ship from point A to point B, regardless of what it takes. Okay? When you are in an Admiralty Maritime court, the judge is like the captain of the ship. He has the last word, and it's always you lose, turkey, no matter what your arguments are. So that's what you agreed to when you took out your check in your savings account. Now, do you want to keep it? Or would you like to get rid of it?
Yeah.
All right. You wrote your signature on it.
Now, you give this to your bank.
Yeah.
Will your bank cancel your checking?
Well, we show you how to do the whole thing. Okay. And there are 4 alternative methods of banking. As a matter of fact, we have 5 now, actually. We just got a new one. So there are 5 ways of doing banking without having that signature card floating out there destroying you. Okay. And obviously you have to do that. It's one of the major things. We just had a chiropractor from Ukiah that was convicted last month of willful failure to file. I had nothing to do with his case. I tried to help him, but he's using somebody else to help him. But at any rate, he did tell me that all during his trial, the U.S. Attorney kept bringing it up over and over and over. But, Your Honor, he has a checking account. So that was their main argument. Gotta go. Next document is real interesting. This is provided for in the Freedom of Information Act, which is a very valuable act to us. That's how we got a couple of these books that we showed you. And this is a Privacy Act request underneath the Freedom of Information Act, like a sub-chapter. And in this first paragraph, you're going to ask for your IMF or individual master file for the year or years that they're after you for. IMF comes back, and you can read your name and address on it, and all the rest of it's in computer code. But we have the books to interpret those codes. Okay? And what happens is that we've never seen an IMF that doesn't have 2 interesting things on it. One is an MF-06, which means no tax return was due for that year, and an MF-10, which means no tax was due for that year. How are they going to look if they try to take you to court and you've got this document? At least the judge is going to have some questions about why are they in here telling you owe them $10,000 or whatever it is when the IMF shows you don't owe them anything. Now, why doesn't the IMF show that you owe anything? The answer is real simple, folks. The IRS doesn't collect taxes. They collect tribute. Do you know the difference? Okay. The reason you don't know the difference is because of the question that I asked you earlier, whether you'd read the Constitution or not. If you'd read the Constitution, you know what taxes are. They're duties, imposts, and excises. The duty is tax on foreign goods coming into this country. Lord knows we all got enough of that stuff in our homes these days and can't afford it. An impost, they say, is a tax on a corporation. It's a tax, an indirect tax on the people who do business with the corporation. Corporation starts out with zero money. They raise money by selling goods or services to the public. So what are they going to do if there's a tax? They're going to pass it on to their customers, right? That's where that comes down. The third one is excise taxes. That's the biggie. And again, most people aren't aware of them. We're all wearing shoes. There's 618 excise taxes on a pair of shoes. You ever go to the store and buy a loaf of bread, right? Mm-hmm. There was 108 excise taxes on a loaf of bread. Did you ever put gas in your car?
Almost daily.
Yeah. 83% of the cost of a gallon of gasoline goes to state and federal excise taxes. Milk, cigarettes, booze, the list goes on and on. Okay? The government raises twice as much money as it needs to run the government legitimately if they just stop paying $2,000 for a hammer and pay $7.95 like the rest of us. Through those methods. So that is the question, where's the IRS come in? Well, here's where the IRS comes in. They steal your money in the form of tribute because you're getting nothing for your money for tribute. Okay? If I came to you and said, Carl, give me $1,000 now. And you say, why? And I say, because my name's Philip Marsh. And you say, well, what are you going to do for me for my $1,000, Philip Marsh? And I say, absolutely nothing. I want the $1,000. Pay now. I might as well have a gun on you or steal your wallet, right? Same difference. That's exactly what the IRS is doing to you. The treasurer of any organization is the one who receives the money and pays the bills, right? That's what the treasurer's job is. Who pays the United States bills? Look at any government check. Says United States Treasury Department on it, right? Not Treasury Department, United States Treasury Department. Look at the back of any check you've ever given the IRS. Deposit to the Federal Reserve Bank. Now, who's the Federal Reserve Bank? They are a private corporation owned by one American family and 11 foreign families, okay, who in their entire history, since 1913, have never, ever given the United States Treasury one dime. So where's the money going? The answer is it goes to Russia, China, and other communist activities designed to destroy this country. Now, when most people hear that, they say, wait a minute, this guy's off the wall and out to lunch. Couldn't possibly be right. Can't possibly know what he's talking about. So let's look at a few facts. First of all, at one time on this planet, there was nothing but masters and slaves. And one day a slave broke free and decided he didn't have to be a slave anymore, and he became middle class. Middle class, by definition, is somebody with money and education. They're free to travel about, and they make lousy slaves. You know, you got a slave, you want to know where they are all the time. Okay? That's step one. Step two is this, or maybe I should expand that there is still the master mentality on this planet. It would be so lovely if we could get rid of it. There are 12 families known as the Order, and they run the world. And you've never heard of them, because they run it from behind closed doors. They just pull the strings. And people like the Rockefellers and the Rothschilds who are up front for them dance the tune, okay? But the Russells and the Millers and the Bushes, and these are the families that rule the world. Yes, George Bush is one of them. Okay. You know who the head of the drug war is in this country, according to the press? George Bush, right?
Oh, yeah.
You hear that all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know who the chief drug pusher is in this country? Same guy.
Same guy.
Yeah. That's why we'll never win the drug war. Drug war is being used to take our rights away from us. In fact, I'm working on a case right now we just heard about yesterday where the police broke into this woman's house, only in half uniforms. They weren't fully dressed or anything, in their full uniforms, with guns drawn and everything, put a gun in the face of a 10-year-old, frightened him out of his wits and everything else, looking for drugs. Turned out later they had the wrong address. And when the woman tried to get an attorney to defend her on it, the attorney said, it'll cost you more for the case than you'll ever get out of it. Which is hogwash. They're covering up for each other. But where did that come from? It came from the fact that recently the Supreme Court said in the case of suspected drug dealers, Police don't have to have a warrant to break in and search.